Apparently Redfin does this report every year about the most popular moving destinations across the US. And I think that this is the second year in a row where Sacramento has topped that list as the most popular moving destination in the United States of America. And
Yeah.
it's because of all the people from San Francisco and the Bay Area migrating to Sac, which is significantly cheaper than the Bay. It's still expensive, but way cheaper.
It's not
And
significantly cheaper than the Bay.
it's, yeah, I mean,
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm supposed to, this is a yes and podcast.
yeah, maybe yes and me for the next like 30 seconds, then we'll,
Yeah,
we'll
you're
get
right.
into
You're
the
right. You're
nuance.
right.
Okay, so I mean, this is just so interesting to me because uh, I did this trip, I did this journey
Mm-hmm.
from living in San Francisco to moving out to Sacramento specifically to buy a house. Like if there was a house of comparable affordability, quote unquote, in San Francisco, I would still be in San Francisco. I do enjoy Sacramento, but this is the thing. That's kind of interesting. Is like this is kind of a cultural phenomenon right now, partly driven by technology, because of the work from home phenomenon. Like I work from home right now, that I think is like super fascinating. And we happen to be experts on this topic because you used to live in Sacramento, now you live in the Bay, and myself vice versa. So we know these cities and these regions quite intimately. Maybe before we jump into the details of SAC versus the Bay and maybe talking about why this is happening, I did want to kind of mention the other cities that are the top moving destinations for 2023. Sacramento was the top. The second metro region that's growing the fastest is Las Vegas, and then Orlando, then Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, then Portland, Maine, and then a couple of others, mostly in Florida, it looks like, going down the list. Also, Nashville is on this list. So this is all
I
pretty
could
interesting.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah, Nashville makes a lot of sense. The Florida, like Tampa, is on the list. They make a lot of sense. Portland, Maine was weird to me. Also, Myrtle Beach. I just don't know anything about that area. But yeah, Sacramento and Las Vegas topping the list. Give me your thoughts on this phenomenon.
Wow, Vegas is a bit of a sleeper on that list. Surprising to me because I have a family member in Vegas and I've been there. I've been there quite a bit, and like it is actually pretty interesting place, but also strange and bleak. Like what a weird
Yeah.
place to be. Also, like I question the sanity of anybody moving to a water poor region. Maybe I'm just like a psycho prepper, but I'm just like, all you people in LA, all you people in Nevada that are just siphoning water from literally the Colorado River, like literally like hundreds and hundreds of miles away is the water that you survive on. Like you're dead. Like like maybe not, but I think fair enough you might be. Sacramento, Las Vegas, Nashville. I've heard a lot of great things about Nashville. I actually just had a chat with somebody that lives there, and it low key seems like a place I might want to like get a house at some point because
Have you been there?
I haven't been there, but so many people
I've
say
been
so much
twice.
good.
I've
But
been
you've
twice.
been. Tell me
Yeah,
about Nashville.
couple of times and
What's the
stayed there for several days.
Nashville deal?
So the downtown area, that's like the tourist area, gets very boring very quickly.
I've
It's
heard
it's
that.
a
Yeah,
lot of cowboy boots and terrible music. I mean, like
sure.
talented folks playing terrible music kind of intentionally because that's what sells in that area,
Right.
I would say. But like outside of the specific downtown region, I do feel like there's a lot of rich, interesting culture. A lot of food you don't find anywhere else in the United States. It's not particularly healthy, but it's good. And there's like a kind of fascinating alcohol culture that it's not like a lot of like IPAs like in the West Coast. It's a lot of people who are way into distilled alcohol. That's
Ah.
kind of interesting. I don't know. There's a lot of family value stuff and Christian stuff, which is
That's what
not
I
that.
like. It seems like
But
people are real friendly out there.
they're friendly and wholesome. Yeah, I was gonna say like it comes
Love
back
it.
around because it comes back around to being like a wholesome type of place, I imagine. But yeah, like it's the vibe, not bad. But when I was there, like every region in the U.S. has its own like apocalyptic issue. When I was last there was right when the pandemic hit. Actually, the news about the pandemic hitting, I was in a hotel room in Nashville. But
Oh wow.
that wasn't even the scary thing. The scary thing was when I flew back, the very next day that I flew back, there was a tornado that hit, and it killed like a ton of people and leveled a ton of buildings. And I was right around that area. We don't even think
Whoa,
about tornadoes on the West
so
Coast,
crazy.
but I was looking up like the
Oh,
photos.
scratch Nashville off my list. That's
I know,
fucking
dude,
automatic.
it was terrifying. Like the videos and everything were terrifying. It's like, oh shit, this is this is like real,
Oh my
because
God. Anywhere
it
where
felt real because I was
tornadoes,
there.
fuck no. Anywhere where tornadoes are even a distant possibility, it's a no for me.
Yeah,
It's a no for me. All
climate
right,
change is making the
Sacramento.
tornadoes worse too. Interestingly,
Yeah, yeah,
of course.
and anywhere that's already maybe partially deserty, like I have to be somewhere. All right, Nashville's off the list. I have to be somewhere with natural water and trees, like good, strong reserves of natural water. I'm not talking about just like some like high water table. All right, dude. Sac versus the Bay. Why is everybody moving out of the Bay? Why is everybody moving to Sac? What do you want to talk about? Do you want to have a fight to the death? Do you want to have a Sac versus the Bay death match? Fuck Sacramento, dude. No, I'm just playing. I like Sacramento a lot.
Okay,
Fuck the Bay. No.
the absolute number one thing that the Bay Area has over Sacramento, natural beauty, I think. And also, if you have a call to be close to the coast, which a lot of
Mm,
people do, you don't like, you feel pretty landlocked in Sacramento. You're by two rivers, which is nice, and you're by the mountains, which is nice, but you feel pretty damn landlocked being in Sacramento if you just came from the Bay. But Sacramento also, it's kind of beautiful because it's like tree city. It has beautiful trees, a canopy on every sidewalk, and it does have two rivers again, which is kind of nice. But like, dude, okay, let me just throw this out there. I think if it's not just like clearly true, it's there's an easy case for it to be true. San Francisco might be the most beautiful city in America.
ooh,
With
it'd be neck and neck with Seattle, because Seattle's
Seattle's
nuts. Seattle's
Seattle's very beautiful too.
why, like just visually, there's so many places where you'll like. But same thing in San Francisco. Like you'll be on a street and you'll look left and be like, no,
Yeah.
like postcard level shit, just glancing around. All
Yeah, and
every day.
there's a thing that San Francisco has too over Seattle, that Seattle has a couple of viewpoints, like
Mhm.
two or three, like not many, like Queen Anne or whatever, like is just
Yeah.
prime
Oh,
Seattle.
it's so good.
I feel like San Francisco, it has what, the seven hills, and each
Hmm.
one of them offers a plethora of like
So true.
breathtaking views.
Yep.
And there's that, and then there's also just like you're on the fucking edge of the continent. In Seattle, you're still inland. You're just like in the Puget
True.
Sound.
Yeah.
There's
True.
something about being on the edge of the continent that I think is kind of more epic than
The
otherwise.
architecture is undeniably more compelling in San Francisco too.
Oh yeah.
Like the Seattle architecture is very white people. Like the San
Yeah.
Francisco architecture is also pretty white people, but a lot of flavor though, a lot of different flavors. Oh man, go
Well,
ahead, go ahead.
I want to talk
Most
about like the
beautiful city.
people a little bit because
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
okay, so you do get this sense, because I'm from the Seattle area, you get this sense that as soon as you move into California, you are around a different breed. And I feel like it's people who, even in the very, very, very back of their mind, they have this kind of like narcissistic or something view that they want to do something to change the world. They're a little bit have this, like this dreamer thing to them, and they move fast, they talk about things that are kind of like dream-esque a little bit too ambitious, perhaps. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like infectious, and it's great. And I think that there's a reason why California has more, as Gavin Newsom was saying, has more patents than like any other state combined, that sort of a thing. Because
Mm.
this draws those sorts of people who are the inventors and the creators. And once enough of those people are here, I think that it starts to become like an infection, and everyone gets a little bit of it. Whereas in Seattle, like culturally, it feels kind of sleepy. It feels pretty sleepy. And
Oh yeah.
I will say that like I felt that in that energy even in Sacramento compared to Seattle, even though Seattle is significantly bigger than Sacramento. Even here in 200,000 plus ish people in the city, pretty small city, you still feel that, which is interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Sacramento. It's interesting, like amenities wise. There's a huge distinction between Sacramento and the Bay, And Seattle, in fact, too, can be in this little scenario where, like, are you a swimmer or are you a biker? You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Or like, what's your preferred method of activity? Because if you're a hiking person, Sacramento couldn't be a worse place to live. You have to travel to hike. If you
Yeah.
like hiking, if you are dyed in the wool Patagonia white person, dude, if hiking is just how you fucking get through the week, you have to live in the Bay because literally everything is a hike. Like walking from one place to another is hiking, but also like hiking is everywhere, but there's nowhere to swim. You can go swim in the ocean, but you might as well drive to anywhere. I mean, if you're going to drive an hour to go do something, then is it really close to you at all? In my mind, the answer is no. Um, but in Sacramento, there's tons of places to swim. And the river, in fact, is a killer place to swim all year round. If you're a swimmer, you just put a wetsuit on, no matter what time of year it is, and it's you know. But yeah, okay. So natural amenities wise, but Sacramento is really beautiful, but in a lowlands way,
Yeah.
and the Bay is really beautiful in a Midlands type of way, in like a hill country type of way. The food is just undeniably more compelling in the Bay Area. I mean, there just can't even.
There's no comparison.
There's
Yeah.
no comparison. Although Sacramento, for a small town, has an unbelievably well developed food culture and
Hmm.
has really the cheapest, freshest, best produce, I submit, on the entire West Coast. I mean, you can get cheaper food and produce in LA, but it's all just like farmed somewhere else and shipped there. But like, man, Sacramento, home of like the 99 cents a pound apples, peaches, like stone fruit season. Like all of like the greens are super fresh, and like it's a great place to buy the food that you cook and eat. And I think that's why there's a lot of healthy people in Sacramento, because the food is just on the whole, I think at better quality than almost anywhere else.
Yeah, for a city this size, it can't be beat. But in terms of the quality
Diversity.
of, yeah, in terms of inequality, like any given random burrito you're going to get here versus in the Bay, it's just not going to be quite as good, unfortunately. And
100%.
yeah, stuff
The
like that.
coffee, the coffee is world class in
The
Sacramento.
coffee is as good as
Let's
it gets.
The
Yeah.
coffee is as good as it gets. There is no better coffee, and there's like five places. In fact, if you were to go Sacramento versus Berkeley coffee, Sacramento would sweep Berkeley. In
Hmm.
fact, Sacramento would sweep the entire East Bay and give San Francisco a run for its money in terms of coffee quality and accessibility.
Well, this is the whole thing that I actually really like about Sacramento as someone who does the work from home lifestyle is that, man, you cannot find one, a good cup of coffee, and then two, a place to sit at the same place in San Francisco. You can find one or the
Or
other.
the
You
East
can get a
Bay.
place to
Yep,
sit, but shitty coffee, or you can
yep,
get no
yep.
place to sit and great coffee. You can't get both. In Sacramento, there are tons of places where you can grab a cup
Oh,
of coffee and bring your laptop and have like do
mm,
your work type of thing. And like
it's idyllic.
yeah, Oakland and Berkeley has a couple of those places, but the coffee is always like subpar at the places where you can reliably bring your laptop. So, and that's like significant nowadays. Like now you have to have that if you're going to be attracting a lot of work from home people and have that as part of your underbelly culture.
Mm.
And that, like, it's no shock that people are moving to Sacramento and not, I don't know, Fresno or Bakersfield or any of the other inland cities like as much. It's because of that culture, I think, that really draws people.
Sac is like if you have a low key vibe and you're just like you just want to live like a low key life, but like comfortable and smooth. Like Sac is that for you. Like you can get I feel like the thing with Sacramento is you can get a groove and you can get it greased and you can run it. And
Mhm.
Sacramento gives you kind of infinite capability to get on a loop and smooth it out and just rock out and do your thing. You know, San Francisco's changing so much, you have to be nimble and agile. You got to be a little bit more, I think there's like a neurosis that is required for living in a major city like San Francisco, where you can't just get a loop going and a groove going and grease it and hope that 3 years from now you're going to be able to profit off of the same thing that you were doing, or keep selling the same item that you were selling, or like you got to be nimble here. You got to have your feelers out, which just creates a different, less chill type of person, I think.
Yeah, one thing that always is kind of fascinating, and I can't quite wrap my mind around it, but San Francisco has a lot of more very sad subgroups to it. For
Mm-hmm.
example, there is a ton of the mid 30s slash late 30s woman who kind of sort of career driven, but it's kind of sort of not exactly like VP of a company yet. And they haven't had kids, so they get a dog, and then their life just becomes weirdly stressful and they get sad by the time they hit 40. There's a ton of people that fit
Oh
that demographic
man, there's a
in
lot
San
of those.
Francisco and the Bay. You don't see that particular sad subgroup in Sacramento because those women just had kids. And then all of a sudden their life is more fulfilled than being like renting a $4,000 apartment that's kind of beautiful, but it gets
They have
old. Then you get
friends
a dog,
in
right? Yeah.
Sacramento. They have like a well-developed friend group. Even if they don't have kids, they've got like people that they see all the time and greet them warmly and like expect them to be around at times. And conversely, in San Francisco, another sad subgroup is the mid 30s to late 30s dude that was probably in a frat in his 20s, maybe has like a tech or tech adjacent job, and like just doesn't know what to do with them. Is making like six figures, like legitimately making more money than almost anyone, and just has no idea what to do with himself. Is like at the same bars, is like cosplaying as a poor person because he can't figure out like how to have a personality. You know what I mean? Like, dude, it's pretty, yeah. There's a
That
lot of lost souls out here, dude, and not like the cool vibey kind.
I've weirdly, oh, because I'm from small towns, I've always weirdly kind of known this, and maybe this is not even true, but like for me, it just always kind of made sense that you have to live in big cities, but you don't stay there. Then you kind of like move out
Yeah.
again. You move
Yeah.
in, like I want to do
Agreed.
a couple years in New York, and I've already spent several months living in London, and it's my favorite city, and I want to like do a couple years in London someday. But I have no illusion of like, oh, I'm gonna be a New Yorker. You know what I mean? I'm gonna like
Mm-hmm.
live in a penthouse, and that's gonna be my life. I don't know. For some reason, I think you have to do it if you're a fairly ambitious person, but it takes kind of a weirdo to think that that's where you end. I think that's part of the story, but I don't know if that's the end. And I think because the city is supposed to churn you out a little bit, if it's doing a
I think
job,
so.
it's going to
Yeah.
like propel you, and then you're going to stay at that level as you migrate to another place that has more convenience to it.
Yeah.
Can I say a talking point here that this is like me. I don't know. Okay, so I went to a conference over the weekend and talked to a lot of people, and this seemed to be like coming up as a theme a little bit. Everyone there was pretty well established, and they all had kids as part of it. And the whole thing that people just kind of like were saying is that, man, like to really just be happy, fundamentally like happy, you do have to do the boring thing in life. You have to just like give in to being the normie. And ambitious people, for some reason, are just like utterly opposed to being the normie or having any like norminess about their lives. And that might be their detriment. And I wouldn't even say this or even care if it weren't for all those stats about depression and suicide and the loneliness epidemic in
Yeah.
men and on and on. And like our society is not doing well. And I do think that part of that calculus is there are so many people, and I'm sort of kind of one of them, that just utterly rebels against any norminess. And dude, like norminess is kind of satisfying at some level.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I'm
it
speaking as
is.
someone who like has a house and a wife and a kid. So, and like I'm
Yeah.
the happiest I've ever been. And I don't
Yeah.
necessarily say it's because of those things, but if I'm super reflective and honest with myself, dude, maybe it is. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Brother, you have to engage with like the piecework and process work of any like Herculean endeavor, and in order to appreciate it and to fully like live through it and love it. And whether that endeavor is just living a life, or whether it's actually building a business or a brand or a product or whatever, it's like assembly required. You know what I mean? And like if you outsource that assembly, you're cheating yourself of and if you always are in a different phase of development where you're always the dreamer or the schemer or the logistics person or the execution person, like you need to move through all of those roles in a life to appreciate the substance of living, and part of that is like caring for another human. It's like it starts with caring for a partner. You know what I mean? It's like you learn how to like there's a whole mechanical side to being a good husband or a good boyfriend or a good romantic partner that just doesn't have anything to do with how you feel. It's
Well,
like,
can I can I
yeah, go
can I
ahead.
jump in just a little bit? Because there's one
Yeah.
thing about the American suburbanite lifestyle that I do think is horrible and toxic and soul sucking. And I don't really want my previous rant to at all like infer that I approve of that lifestyle. And I think that it is the there's a long history of like how the gas companies ruined the rail lines in LA and made it so that it was a car centric culture. And that's kind of like writ large on American culture. I don't think that car culture is healthy, and I don't think that the suburbs are healthy because you are just like staying in your dumb little bubble and
It's only
watching TVs or
process work.
TikTok. I think that
Yeah.
like this is why I like Sacramento. And this is like part of my spiel here in my rant is that in Sacramento, it's small enough that you can live downtown, be part of like a walking, biking lifestyle. Like I don't own a car right now. My wife does, but I don't. I walk and bike everywhere. I couldn't do that if I lived in the suburbs. I walked to coffee shops and grocery
Right.
stores and co-ops and like bookstores and you name it. Like that's what we need to somehow as like a society build more of that infrastructure. It's because it's not just like cities downtown with tons of crime and homelessness or way out in the suburbs. We didn't need to build up like the midtown type areas of cities and make them super livable and walkable. And this is what like Europe kind of succeeded at that we never did.
Sacramento is the perfect like tableau for like urban planning for any type of urban. It's perfect. It's a perfect 24 street by 24 street grid that is like perfectly flat, has all of the amenities necessary for life. You can leave it if you want other stuff, but you don't have to. You could stay there and you could never own a car. You could have a job inside of it. You could get all your groceries inside of it, all your friend groups, all your activities, all of your places that you like to go. I mean, literally, when you live in Sacramento, like you don't leave Midtown much. I mean, unless you go to
Yeah,
why would you go to this like one of the suburbs for what? Maybe to play golf or something. I don't know.
like
You go to
I'm
the
not a
river,
city
but the river's in
planner.
Midtown.
Yeah, the rivers. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I'm not a city planner, so I've never quite understood this. But like, there's a downtown grid in Sacramento. You're totally correct. And then as soon as you get out of the grid, that starts to break down in like bigger yards, more single family homes, et cetera. Why did that have to break down? Why didn't that whole thing just keep extending with apartments and then shops on the bottom floor, apartments, shops on the bottom floor? That doesn't have to like, and then like neighborhoods kind of intersperse throughout that. Why did we have to separate the neighborhoods so drastically? And I mean, I know kind of sort of the answer to this, but like, I don't think that there's like a law of physics that makes that the case. I think that it's just like people not wanting to be close to, I don't know, like any sense of grittiness or something like this. I don't know, like, but I just wish that that grid concept would be extended more and more and more and more, and then the city just ends abruptly. Why does it have to like peter out for 30 miles into like larger and larger single family homes? That to me like just bugs me so much.
Well, it's like, and it continues out like ad infinitum to the next city to people who
Yeah.
just want more and more autonomy. I think that's what it is. It's just people who are like less and less comfortable with like living close to another person and having to deal with their bullshit. Like, or people who know that they're not socially acclimatized to doing that, or they need to compartmentalize their life. People who live in cities are like hybrid animals. Like we're really quite a a different, yeah, like you just have to be way more comfortable with invading space and having your space invaded and being like accosted in like kind and unkind ways. And I think a lot of country people and suburbs people are just not at that speed where they're like, I'd like to choose my times when I interact with other people. And most of the time, I just want to be in this space that's mine. And
But
I think most people live
unfortunately,
like that.
even that
Yeah.
I think is kind of fine. But in America, that suburb thing comes with eating shitty food because you're close to
Mm.
three McDonald's is,
Oh, you're just
breathing
getting preyed
shitty
on by
air because everyone
corporations.
drives a huge truck.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it comes with so many negative aspects. It's
it
not
sure
just like,
does.
oh, now I have a big house and a nice yard. I don't have to see homeless people. It's that plus, yeah, and also you're not going to walk anymore. You're not going to bike anymore. You're going to eat
Yeah,
shitty food. You're going to
yeah,
die younger, you know? Like,
yeah.
so it's not net positive necessarily.
No, but really the food is the only reason for that. It's just a shame that corporate culture kind of found its foothold. It found its Normandy. To be able to like stage its all-out assault on people's fucking lifespan. Jesus Christ. Because you know how it worked, right? It had to have been like a situation where it's like a developer comes in, they're like, we're going to spend like, $150 million building like, this huge tract of homes. And like, I'm sure it's way easier for them to be like, oh, you know, this division of our company interfaces with the corporate division of like Olive Garden and Chili's and fucking cinema,
Right.
like, and the cinema and like all of those corporations, and it's all just streamlined. Because you start dealing with individual business owners, you got to start dealing with people's personalities and how reliable they're going to be. Is their business going to fail? Is their business like the suburbs are set up for like longevity? Like nobody, like Chili's is never going to close, and because it doesn't matter if it's making money or not, because the other 500 Chili's are making money. You know what I mean? Like it's set up, it is intelligently designed. It's just our food culture is so poor, and we're so good at disguising petroleum as food and sneaking it into
Yeah,
everything.
that's a good way to put it. Hey,
Um,
well, let me get your hot takes on what you think the future is of the Bay Area and Sacramento now
mm-hmm.
that they're in this weird marriage. And let me preface this with a couple of comments, which is one, I think this is kind of interesting that there are a couple of different mega regions in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
New York area, and there's a couple of them. Like Seattle area might be one of them. Northern California is becoming a mega region, and it's because Sacramento is growing in population, so that the cities of the area are all kind of melding into one big
Yeah,
melting pot of like
yeah,
civilization, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That to me is kind of exciting because I'm
Me
pro
too.
I'm pro mega city, dude. I'm
Oh,
pro because like the second this is like kind of a mega city, it's gonna justify us having like let's have that high speed rail conversation keep going, etc. Like it will just make life better, I think, for all the participants.
yeah,
So there's that, and then there's also that phenomenon where those tech folks are conceivably building a new city between SF and Sac, I think around the Vacaville area, with a lot of tech money, and they want to build it from the ground up to be as walkable as Paris. They said something with this.
awesome.
I want to pass this over to you and get your thoughts on this and what you think the future is for this potential mega region. But I was talking to our buddy Sam, our mutual buddy Sam, about in general where cities are headed, and he works in doing like construction, electrician stuff right now. And he keeps talking about how he's blown away that in these areas of the world where the temperature has become more of an issue with climate change. SAC already, hits 115, every summer. Why don't we build down more? Why don't we build more into the ground? And he's kind of predicting that if they were to build one of these cities between the Bay and SAC, that they would be smart to build some subterranean levels to that city to make it so that it's just naturally cool. And also, I mean, that's just kind of untapped potential for how, I mean, maybe you've seen this in London, where if you look at just like a normal street, a lot of times multi-billionaires own these random townhouses, and you cannot build up in London. You can't,
Sure.
because these are historic buildings that haven't changed in
Yeah,
fucking 500 years, and no one's
yeah,
letting you build on this. So they all build down. Like it's like McJagger or something. It goes 4 stories below the street level for his house, and it's just like excavated down there forever. And then you see pictures of what it's like, and it's like a pool hall, and it's like maybe a swimming pool even. Like it's
oh,
phenomenal. And
oh,
like that might kind of sort of be, this is our friend Sam's prediction, but like that might be kind of like part of this region, how it is a hot-ish region, how that might be a phenomenon that becomes a thing here. I don't know, just interesting. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
With the subterranean thing, maybe because I've thought about this a lot, and I've asked around a lot, because there's places like Montana. When we go to Montana, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the winds are so high, the temperatures are so extreme. If you dig 10 feet down, everything becomes more stable, right? Temperature wise, like you 10 feet down, it never changes. The temperature never changes. It's always like 65. So no matter if it's hot outside or cold, you can always pull air into your house that's like temperate. Um, in Montana, it's a bedrock issue. So it's like it's so difficult to get through it's just straight like shale, and different types of rock that are extremely challenging to dig through. And in every different place, the substrate is different, and the water table is different and shifts. And then as soon as you deal with something being underground, water becomes an issue that's like it's like the dominant issue. Like above ground, you can deflect water and you can get it to move away from stuff, but underground, water is always there. And if you ask anybody that's like a structural engineer or anybody that does any kind of like just construction in general, like water is the one thing that does the most damage and is the hardest to figure out how to make it not do damage. Like it's really, really, really challenging. Water, and everybody I think kind of knows that intuitively, that water just finds a way, man. So maybe, if depending on the substrate, because the thing is as soon as you build above ground, all the variables are accounted for. What happens.
Right.
What happens when it rains, blah blah blah. But underground, everything's moves different. But it would be nice, and a lot of places do that. A lot of places have like they'll have some kind of crawl space or subfloor or basement that they pull air from, so that it cools the house down, like especially out in the hills and places where like people don't have 50 grand to do HVAC. You dig a hole in the ground, and in the heat of the summer, you just use a fan to pull the cold air up from the subfloor or the basement or the hole or whatever. Anyways, I would love it if this whole region became contiguous, because as you drive from Sacramento to San Francisco, the amount of arable, buildable, like legitimate land is extreme. And it gets hotter and hotter as you go towards like Fairfield, Vacaville, like Dixon, Woodland. Those areas get really hot in the summer. But then as soon as you come over that hill into Vallejo, it's just vague temperatures for the rest of the drive, and it's very temperate. I'd love to see this area get connected by a high-speed rail, have less of like a cheesy, mall suburby culture in like Fairfield, Dixon, Vacaville. Let's rope Stockton and Modesto into it. Let's get Pinole and Hercules and Pittsburgh and all of these places that are like North Bay. We can get all that stuff connected. Then what we have is like a place where we can allow culture to flourish. Because like I was saying a minute ago, like the reason why all these corporate businesses crop up in these places is because they can establish themselves and remain there, and they don't need that specific business to be profitable. They can suffer losses, but they can stay put. But then as soon as there's like a mass, like a financial and physical mass of people that's contiguous in an area, it gives the platform for small businesses, for like, more cultural stuff to happen. I think if we could get Sacramento and San Francisco connected in a more fundamental way, those two energies would mix, and we would have cooler art and music. And I would just love that, man. That's such a fantasy for me.
There's something about a lot of people coming together all in one place. That's where magical things happen. Look at any civilization in the world, and everything that is worthy of being, put in a book as part of history. It all started with like an excess of human beings coming together into one place and making a civilization. Yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
I was just in, maybe final note on California cities and this phenomenon. Dude, I drove to Santa Barbara over the weekend, and just for fun, because I haven't been there forever, I stopped in Stockton, and because I was going down the 5, there's nothing down the 5, so I was like, I'll stop in Stockton to get coffee and just hang out for a second. Man, okay, I don't want to do any disservice to anybody out there, but I don't know, man.
How
Stockton
many
was
ankle
not.
monitors? What was your ankle monitor count in the 15 minutes that you were out of the vehicle?
I was I was just feeling no vibe. I went to a coffee shop that pulled up that looked like it might be a cool one. It did not have any sort of a thing happening. I ended up at a Starbucks, like for
Mm,
real, after like
mm.
walking around a little bit. And I was like the Starbucks is more appealing than the weird place that I thought that I was going. I don't know, like I wasn't sensing anything happening there, man. Like
Mm.
nothing. Whereas like you can accidentally stumble into any random street in Sac and like something kind of cool will be happening. You'll be like, oh, there's a great coffee shop. I want to eat there for lunch, you know? I don't know, like really basic shit. It's like Stockton. I don't know, even the vibe when you're driving downtown.
You're really giving Sacramento elitist energy at this point, Peter. You're really you're
So
really
so be it,
you're
man.
really giving like Sac exceptionalist energy. It was cool up until the
I know because I had a memory of Stockton in my mind being kind of cool or
mm,
something. I don't
really?
know. Maybe it was just
Hmm.
like, well, I used to go there with our buddy Johnny and like go to punk shows and shit like that, like
Oh
at night.
yes. Yes, yes,
And it
yes.
kind of felt young and hip and
True.
something was almost
Yes.
about to happen. But I don't know. Maybe again, it was just like a random day and random streets. But yeah,
Oh,
man, I was disappointed. And maybe that just goes to show that it takes a lot for a city to level up to becoming a place that's kind of like has a cultural
it's
moment.
cool.
Maybe I feel
Yeah.
like Sacramento is having a cultural moment,
It
and
is
maybe
right
it
now,
it
yeah.
just yeah, maybe it just takes a lot for that to happen, and maybe Stockton hasn't hit that yet, or maybe I'm just being unfair to it based on one little trip. But yeah,
Well, and Sacramento, as much as it likes to present itself as a small town, is the capital of California. Like it has
sure,
always been an underperformer in terms of people's expectations of what it would be culturally. When we were growing up, I would always tell people if they wanted to visit Sacramento, I'd be like, visit Sacramento, but don't expect to just show up and there's stuff to do. Like you need to
true.
like do a little bit of research, figure out if you want to go see a couple things and like plan yourself because it's not like a place like San Francisco where you can just kind of roll up and then like, you know, get lost and find something cool. It is that now.
Mhm.
It was that when we were kids because we knew everybody and we knew all the cool shit to do. But like now, it's the type of place that you kind of can just roll up and there's like whole districts of town where you could kind of just spend the whole day vibing out, probably meet some nice, friendly people. You know, it is really turning. It is having a moment. And it feels really good there. It's a shame that the suburbs are so lifeless and so vibeless because the only place that really is worth being around is literally the small downtown area. Like everything in the hinterlands of Sacramento, you might as well be anywhere else. You might as well be in Rancho Cucamonga or fucking, you know what I mean, like some weird suburb of Seattle.
Dude, that is kind of like what I'm saying. Almost any city in America, you go a little bit too far at the city center, if I could
Might
talk,
as well be
and then
anywhere.
you might as well be anywhere. It
You
is
might as well be
all
in
the same.
Idaho, dude.
It's all McDonald's and Starbucks. Yeah, the
Yeah.
second you get out of certain area in Sac, it's that. It's
Why
just it
not just
could be
move to
anywhere.
Kansas, you know?
You might as if you're gonna live in a suburb of Sacramento where your house is $500,000, you might as well get that same house in Minnesota for $200,000 or
Oh,
whatever. You know what I mean? Like it makes no
100%.
sense to be here if that's what your lifestyle is.
100%. Have we settled the? No, we've just given a lot of opinions
Okay,
about Sacramento. All right, hold on, hold on. Let me put it. Let me
okay, I want
scoreboard
one more
us.
too. So yeah, you go,
Oh,
then
you
I'll
want
go.
one more? All right, hold on. Let me. I want to give a nice little sound bite scoreboard. Uh, all right, from you, Peter. Who wins? People, Sacramento or San Francisco?
I'm gonna edge towards Sacramento only right now.
I'll take
Only right now.
Sacramento. I'll
Mhm.
take yeah, only right now, and it could change, but I'm gonna
It could
take
change.
Sacramento. Food, who wins? San Francisco, Sacramento.
San Francisco, hands down.
San Francisco. I'm taking you on that. Coffee, San Francisco or Sacramento?
Sacramento, man, Sacramento.
I will agree. I will agree that Sac takes it on coffee. Obvious. This is going to be an obvious one. Housing, Sacramento or San Francisco?
Sacramento, easy,
It
no
is. It's
question.
Sacramento,
Yeah.
no question. Okay, and on tilt as a whole, vibe. San Francisco. This is tough because they have two distinct, very interesting and cool vibes. San Francisco or Sacramento.
This I wanna like hedge on a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because San Francisco, it by far has a better vibes, but only if your life gravitates around a couple of specific areas of that city.
True.
Um, Sacramento, the vibe is what it is. It's not too extreme. It is not too terrible. It is what it
Yeah.
is. You know what's going to be here. San Francisco, it could be anything. And like, I'm not even talking about like homelessness in the Tenderloin, which
Mm-hmm.
obviously everyone has a problem with. I'm talking about like, I would absolutely not want to live in the Sunset District out in San
I'm
Francisco. There
saying
is
that same
nothing.
thing,
I
dude.
have a buddy who has a house out there, and it's like, yay, house in San Francisco. Someone have to pay me to live there. I'm so sorry. You're like
Mission
landlocked.
or bust, dude.
Mission or bust. I mean, or Noe Valley, you
Or
know?
Noe Valley. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd live in the hate. Shit, man. I'd live close to the park. You know what I'm
Yeah, yeah,
saying?
totally. Yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't live in the Sunset. I wouldn't live in Soma necessarily.
If
I
you're
wouldn't
gonna
live
live 40 minutes from downtown, just live in Oakland.
just live in Oakland. That's exactly it. I would live in Oakland over living in like the dog patch, maybe. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. We've gotten into the weeds, Peter.
This is getting into the weeds. Okay, yeah, maybe just one more because it is kind of a thing, but like cultural amenities and nightlife, San Francisco does win that too, hands down, no question.
No, not no question. It
Okay,
does.
okay, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Sacramento puts up a real fight. You know why? Because you can drag your ass from every bar to every other bar on foot in Sacramento. And
True.
you cannot
Yeah.
do that in San Francisco. You got to stick your ass in a district or you're paying for Ubers to go all over town. In Sacramento, you can do a bar crawl that takes you from one side of the city to the other, getting like 10 different vibes walking, which is
You can also,
tremendous.
I will say this too, because this is just big enough city to do this. You can go to a bar, get some drinks, go to a nice restaurant. You
Yeah.
can then go to a Kings game, like an NBA basketball team,
Yeah.
on foot,
Yes.
still walking.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you can walk to a hip indie theater and see a movie that's open
Truly.
late. So you can do all
Truly.
of those things. That's kind of like clutch culture. You can't like
Yeah.
top that. And
And
yeah, that is here
you
for
could
sure.
in the course of your walking, you might find a cool house party. There's
Yeah.
definitely bars that are gonna be popping until 2. You know, like Sac actually, it's a more closed loop, but the little it's like circuit training in Sac. You know what I mean? Like you know what bar to hit first, then you start getting you start figuring out how to run the fucking run the loop.
We'll have to check in, a couple years or a year from now and see how the mega region is coming along. But yeah, till next time, Devin.
Adios, Pete.